So hi everyone, welcome to the noon mindfulness period. UCLA Alumni Affairs sponsoring these sessions. My name is Marvin G. Belzer from the Mindful Awareness Research Center at UCLA. So if you're new to meditation and mindfulness, we will do a meditation in a few minutes. It's really the foundation for everything that we teach. But in addition to meditation, we also can practice mindfulness in the midst of daily life. And it can be a very interesting part of mindfulness practice, even if we don't happen to meditate very much. So they go together really well. And the idea is that we can intentionally bring more awareness into ordinary activities. Of course, as we go through our day, we are aware. It's not part of mindfulness practice to try to make awareness better. It's arising naturally in human consciousness, just being able to know what we're hearing and seeing, tasting, feeling and thinking. And yet there is a way in which when we get into our routines, we become a little bit half conscious, or we're not fully aware. And so it can be quite interesting to get out of our routines a little bit, right? By routines, I just mean the habits. Like, we all have kind of ways we go about our day, things we do most days. We just do it habitually. And this integration, I'm just going to lecture for a couple minutes, then we'll shift gears. This integration of mindfulness into daily life can be super simple. I don't think it's a good idea actually to get in a way too serious about being mindful all the time, right? But it's an invitation to look for those moments or those parts of our days or certain activities where it might be interesting or revealing to pay a little more attention. And so one of the things that we teach in our basic MAPS classes is mindful eating. Just being more aware of what happens in this very ordinary part of a day, which, can be a source of pleasure. It also can be a source of pain. And it's an interesting part of life that we can very easily have habits around and simply take for granted. So that's another class, that's another session. Our topic today is relational mindfulness. And this is an area where we actually consciously bring a little bit more attention into the ways that we relate with other people. And again, we have habits, right? We have ways, we have personalities, we have ways that we tend to approach, the ways we tend to interact, and so forth. And relational mindfulness is an area where we just gently try to bring more awareness into what's going on in our interactions with others. And obviously in this session, I can't explain that much because we do want to get to the meditation. And we also are in a context where we can't interact, right? Given this is a webinar format. If we were in a Zoom room with breakout rooms, at some point I would actually just give you a little exercise to do and put you in a room with 2 or 3 other people to do the exercise. So before we go today, I'll give you some homework and invite you to do an exercise with somebody in your life. So we'll get to that later. But that's the frame for thinking about what we're doing today, is that even in relationships with people with whom we're very close, right? There are going to be patterns, there are going to be habits that we have. And certainly many of those habits are great, are wonderful. Some of those habits may not be so great. Some of them might actually be kind of blocking a sort of intimacy or friendship that we would prefer to have. And so it can be really interesting, just very gently, we're not trying to get perfect here, but very gently bring attention into what's happening in our interactions with others. So we'll circle back to that theme near the end, but I would like now just to transition into a meditation. And I'll talk for another couple minutes, then we'll do about a 12-minute meditation and then come back to this theme of relational mindfulness before we go, plus the homework. So mindfulness is not a capacity that we have to create. It comes naturally in human consciousness, this ability to know what's happening in our experience, what we can hear, think, feel, and so forth. And it is a capacity that we can refine and deepen. And this is where a meditation can be helpful, and the science is supporting this, that indeed engaging in this type of activity can make differences that even can be measured both physically and psychologically. What we do in the meditation is pretty simple. For two things. First, we focus on something actually happening. I'll guide you in this. Something relatively simple, like the sensations connected with the breath, the sounds that we can hear, and so forth. The reason we spend time doing this is that it actually works to cultivate more calmness, clarity of mind, stability. To start, we don't have to change anything. So just in the midst of whatever things are like for you now, I'll invite you to direct your attention to the sounds you can hear in your environment, to what you can feel in your body, to what the breath feels like. And so we use our ability to direct our attention, and this is very manageable. It's something we can do. We don't have to clear our minds or get complicated in order to begin. The second thing is, when we try to do this for a while, we will be able to do it a little bit. It is doable, but our attention will drift. Our minds are by nature very active. And so at some point we'll realize we've been drawn into some patterns of thoughts, just the ordinary to-do list for the day. Maybe a random memory has popped to mind. There may be emotions we notice. And one of the beautiful things I feel about mindfulness practice is we're giving ourselves this permission just to be real, just to experience what is happening. We don't have to pretend it's not happening. We don't have to conjure up some improvement. And we certainly don't have to perform in some way to please others. And so it's even in itself, it's a sort of free space. And this also is being shown to be really helpful for managing the flow of experience better. And then when you can, reconnect back to the breath or wherever we were focusing. So I seem to be in the mood to lecture. Let's meditate together. I'll guide you. We'll take about 12 minutes for the meditation, and then come back to the theme of how we do something similar to meditation, even in interactions with other people. So your eyes can be open or closed. Most of us will probably find it easier to close our eyes, but either way is fine. Might take a few deeper breaths. So breathe in slightly deeper a few times. Yeah, slightly deeper in breath, out breath, almost a sigh. Then letting your breath be normal. We'll come back to the breath in a minute. Just now though, just notice the sounds you can hear. So there may be a few sounds coming through my laptop to you, my voice, or sounds in my environment over here. I don't know what is in your environment. Doesn't matter. Just turn your attention to this part of your experience, right? So we don't have to stop other things. There may be plenty of thoughts or emotions. You may have physical pain. In the midst of whatever is happening for you, notice you have this capacity to place your attention primarily on what you can hear. It's not excluding other things, but the attention is just tracking some sounds, so it's very doable. It doesn't matter what you're hearing. You don't have to try to hear everything. It's this mental activity of focusing, sustaining attention with something relatively mundane that is the catalyst for this cultivation of calmness, clarity, stability of mind. So this is doable. It can take some time for the mind to settle, but it's not that we have to rush it or make something happen. If it seems like this is too easy, that meditation can't be this easy, actually, it is in a way. It's actually this doable. Um, it takes patience. It especially does take patience to do it for any period of time, but moment by moment it is actually quite manageable. So opening to sounds is a good way to begin. When you wish, let your attention settle into your body. And now, so we're shifting our focus from sounds to what we can feel in our bodies: head, shoulders, arms, hands, torso, legs, feet, just ordinary sensations. Obviously, I don't know what you will experience, but you can. So notice vibration, pressure, softness. Some of us will have pain, so you might notice that in parts of your body. So we feel into our bodies. It's natural to feel the breath, just the normal breath now, sensations in the abdomen, the chest, or at the nose as the normal breath takes place. So notice what you can feel there, the abdomen, the chest, or the nose. As the in-breath begins, tends to be slight rising, tensing with the in-breath, sort of falling, softening, dissolving with the out-breath. At the nose, a flow of fine sensations as air comes in, as air leaves. So it does take effort. It's a sort of patience, but we don't have to improve the sensations. We're not trying to get something out of the sensations. It's a mental activity that is the significant activity, and really can be effective for allowing our minds to settle, become calmer when we do this for a while. If for any reason the breath, you're not quite comfortable tuning into the breath, you can shift to your hands, sensations in your hands or somewhere else in your body that's not painful, or maybe back to sounds. So you have some choice there. And then, of course, keeping in mind that try as we might to keep our attention stable, um, our minds will drift. And this is part of our intelligence, really. It's just that we're used to moving from one thing to another to another. And, you know, we have memories of the past. We have a to-do list for today. We have problems on our minds and all of this. So it's normal human intelligence to, you know, especially when we're asking ourselves to stay focused on something relatively mundane, it's quite natural for the mind to move. So when we notice our attention has been pulled into thinking or planning, just that recognition, often there will be emotion, some degree of anxiety, fear, grief, um, perhaps joy, whatever it is, just notice, recognize it, maybe feel it in your body, often in the chest, the torso. There are some sensations that are a component of the emotions and often overlooked. So in mindfulness practice, we become more familiar with the full experience, but we do not have to try to micromanage it. Just that recognition, giving ourselves that permission just to be real, and then reconnect back to the breath, to the hands, to the breath, to the sounds, wherever it feels congenial for you. So I'll be silent for a few minutes. We can practice this together. So we'll take a couple more minutes for the meditation period. One of the great things about this activity is we don't need to get too caught up in evaluating how well we've done. It is quite natural for our minds to form judgments, and we can learn things, but we don't have to like kind of figure out, did we do it right? Should we do it better? And when you notice thoughts like that, just a great opportunity just to notice the thoughts as thoughts. This is thinking. You don't have to take it too seriously. The action even now is what's happening now. What does this breath feel like? Even one breath can be significant because it helps us get that feel of, okay, this is being present in this moment, just with the sensation of this in-breath beginning, this out-breath. If you have noticed a mood and an emotion, not trying to outsmart it or fix it, just giving some attention to the raw feel of it, the actual physical, palpable sensations. Often in the chest, there's something happening, the torso. Coming back to the breath or your hands whenever you wish. So I'll ring a bell simply to end the meditation. So thank you. It's good to meditate with you. Um, Briefly, what I led you in doing is first that directing attention to something in your own experience, what you can hear, what you can feel in your body, your hands, or your breath. Um, for most people in kind of for most of us, this physical aspect of meditation is the most important because we are so oriented to our minds. And there's nothing wrong with that in principle because life is interesting. And of course, during this period of time, life is intense and there's a lot to think about and try to figure out and worry about and so forth. But of course, so much at the moment is not within our control. And we will notice that we're kind of mulling things over in a way that may not be so helpful. Whether it's helpful or not, it can also be wonderful to cultivate this closer connection with what's actually happening in our bodies, both for that purpose of calming down, right? Just that taking that time patiently noticing what the breath feels like for a little while or the hands, and also that attunement to like what an emotion actually feels like, right? And so whether it's in meditation or whether it's in the midst of a normal day or whether it's waking up in the middle of the night, like what's going on? My mind's racing. These basic principles can be useful. Just tuning into the feel of your body, the feel of a breath, noticing the sensations that are a component of the emotion. So those are the basics of mindfulness as a meditation and as a way of bringing more mindfulness into daily life. And now coming back to that theme of relational mindfulness that can help us in the midst of relationships with other people. First, I think the first principle that's going to be most important for most people here, and based on my experience teaching in a lot of contexts and so forth, is remembering that even in a conversation with someone or in an interaction, there is experience taking place in our bodies. And so even when even when a lot is happening, we can practice staying attuned to what it feels like in one's own body, even though normally for most of us, the tendency to be preoccupied with the conversation, with what is going on. And so that would be part of the homework, should you choose to accept it. Um, See if there are moments where you can remember, okay, in this conversation, in this interaction, can I be more attuned to the feel of my body, to what I'm actually experiencing physically? And I'm not suggesting trying to do this all the time, because we don't want mindfulness to be something else we add to our to-do list, right? In addition to the 302 other things on the list, we don't need 303. Be mindful all the time. But it's more of an invitation to kind of notice that, well, we are aware, and can we actually expand our awareness just a little bit to include more of what's happening? And this can be very interesting. Secondly, often in conversations, in interactions with other people, we have a lot going on. It would be normal, if we were having a conversation, for me to be thinking, listening to you, but also thinking about what I'm going to say in response. And obviously, this is wonderful. It's how we converse, it's how we have fun with others, it's how we solve problems with others, and so forth. So I'm not at all saying there's something wrong with this, but it also can be very interesting to actually give ourselves an activity where, just for a little bit of time, we don't have that responsibility to reply. And so some of the relational mindfulness exercises that we have created, and that I've had a lot of fun with, especially with college students, is making up little games where one person just listens while another person simply speaks. And so if I'm the listener in that game, then all I have to do is pay attention. I don't have to prove I'm paying attention. I don't have to comment. I just, we both know we're doing this activity. So I have that permission just to listen. And that gives me a little bit of opportunity to notice what's happening for me as a listener. And also to kind of remember to stay attuned to my body, even as I'm listening, to notice what's going on there. So if we did have a breakout room option here, I would divide you into little breakout rooms and just do an exercise with another person. So we're not going to do that today. If you can come to some of our classes at the Mindful Awareness Research Center, which we have plenty now online, we will be doing sort of these exercises all the time. One innovation we can do, and I invite you to consider doing it, would be to actually find someone in your life right now who might be a good person to do an exercise like this with. And exactly what you would do can depend on who they are, right? So I was teaching this not long ago with some students, and it occurred to me, well, why don't I call my mother and do this exercise? And with her, what I did was, Mom, I'm a mindfulness teacher. Today I had my students do an exercise. I was wondering if you would do this exercise with me. The exercise is, you have 2 minutes to just talk about what life was like when you were my age. And I'm just going to listen. And I know it's kind of weird, but will you do it? And she's like, of course I'll do it. And so she's cool. And it was one of the best 2 minutes I've had for a long time. It was quite surprising. I'm 67. She's like, okay, well, when I was 67, well, you know what? That's the year I started playing the saxophone. And I was like, wow, that's good. I knew she had started at a more advanced age, but I didn't realize it was 67. And she's like, yeah, your father was just retiring. We bought this RV. It was beautiful. And it was also nice just to have that kind of weird game so that she could just reflect and talk, and she knew it was okay for her just to talk while I listened. So I invite you to see if there's someone in your life with whom you can do a game like that. If it is an older person, like a parent or an aunt, that's not a bad prompt. What was life like for you when you were my age? If it's a child, like you might have a son or a daughter, a child, if they're young, they're going to be into these games all the time, right? So they don't even know you're playing the game, but you don't say mindfulness to confuse them. just listen for 2 minutes and see without, if they're a little bit older, uh, you know, if they're 13 or older, they probably have the concept of mindfulness enough. So you can say, I was in a mindfulness class, here's the exercise. You just talk for a couple minutes. Maybe the prompt would be, what is life like for you right now? What has it been like for you? I know we've lived together here for these months, but this is just a game. I have to do this exercise. I'm just going to listen for 2 minutes. Silence is okay, but you just get to talk. Would you do it? They may not want to do it, so don't twist any arms. Um, and thank them after it's over. See what happens. Good luck. You don't have to do this. It is an invitation. It's very odd teaching relational mindfulness in a webinar format, but I think that you probably can see that I love it, and we want to be a resource for you. At the Mindful Awareness Research Center, UCLA, my name is Marvin G. Belzer. We do have a lot going on this summer, including the normal 6-week classes. There's a retreat, actually July 9 through 12. I'll be one of the primary teachers. And in the context of this retreat, which you do at home, we've done several of these. We did one, the first big event online was a Harvard retreat for spring break. I taught. We did another one for UCLA students on the UCLA spring break, and have had a lot of success, I feel, both teaching meditation, practicing together for several days where we are in our own homes. We integrate into daily life more. So that'll be July 9 through 12. You can check our website for other activities this summer. And thank you for your attention. I hope it's been helpful. Take care.